Hello everybody, and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. Yes, welcome home everybody. If you're one of those people out there that just gets so sad and lonely every time the spooky season kind of closes up and is done for the year, but then you get a little bolt of excitement because now you know you get to talk about all your favorite Christmas scary and horror movies, but then feel like you have nobody to talk to or share that love for Christmas horror, well, I am here for you right now. You could stop your endless search to talk to people about movies because now we have each other. But yeah, welcome to ZakIsCinema. Today we're going to be reviewing and discussing the movie Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker, which came out in 1991. The movie follows a young boy and his mother as they uncover the deadly secret behind a mysterious toy maker whose creations are turning Christmas gifts into literal instruments of terror. If you've been keeping up with my channel here, we are obviously delving deep into this entire franchise. For those new to the channel in this series, I am very, very new to this franchise. I have never seen any of these movies in this franchise up until this point. So with the holiday season right around the corner, with our new reboot, reimagining Silent Night, Deadly Night movie coming out in just a few days here, I thought it would be an absolute blast for all of you lovely people and myself to join me on this discussion of the entire franchise. So let's jump into the review section, starting with the positives or just the things that I enjoyed most about this movie. Now, I was so curious on where I was eventually going to land with my thoughts and feelings on this movie. I really enjoyed part 1. 2 was an iffy mixed bag for me. Hated part 3, but part 4 was this huge surprise for me. And with part 4, I recognize that they're going more of the Christmas anthology route, and that part 5 here seemed to be a continuation of that anthology route where we're kind of ignoring Ricky and Billy and the main plot line from the first movie and kind of doing our own thing. So those were kind of my expectations going in, and a positive for this movie, I really enjoy so far how this franchise kind of turned into the anthology route where necessarily these stories aren't really connected anymore. You got your first 3 movies that all are basically a continuation of the first one, but I feel like this franchise knew to pump the brakes a little bit, recognize they could really only stretch that plot line out for as long as they did, even though they kind of overdid it with part 3, and just kind of went with, okay, we have a popular franchise that's recognizable based on the title. Let's kind of do our own thing. They're kind of doing what the Halloween franchise was gonna do, but then stopped after Season of the Witch. So with the Silent Night franchise, they just kept continuing, and I really do enjoy this anthology series that they got going on. With this movie, I was curious if it was going to be connected to part 4 anymore. Like I said, I'm glad they went the anthology route. I think it's a lot of fun here. And even though it's not connected to part 4, I still enjoy that they have Neith Hunter in here playing Kim. It's almost like she's a different version of Kim, or they just don't really acknowledge part 4. Even though they don't reference it in my little ZakIsCinema headcanon, I kind of like to imagine that Kim is the Kim from the 4th one, and the kid that she has is Hank's son, her boyfriend's younger brother, and she kind of took him in and is now taking care of him after the events of part 4. So you can do stuff with that, with the anthology, kind of have little Easter eggs, maybe little continuations without it calling it out right there in the movie, which I kind of enjoy. And I feel like the anthology route, like I was saying, doesn't really keep this franchise just closed in a box and super limited. As long as it takes place around Christmas, they can kind of slap the title on. And even when the movies are bad, it at least allows for some unique ideas, fresh new ideas for the franchise, so it doesn't kind of peter out and just find itself repeating itself again. So I appreciate that because it doesn't fall into that repetitive route that we've seen a ton of franchise fall into. And a part that I was missing from part 4, one of my few negatives, is part 4 didn't really have that Christmas vibe. Sure, it took place around Christmas, but it didn't really tie into the plot whatsoever and really could be taken out of the movie. This one really goes back to that Christmas vibe with the music, the villain being this evil toy maker version of Santa. So I appreciate that it goes back to those Christmas roots here, and it feels like a movie that you can watch around the holiday season. Now, I wish the movie had some more kills sprinkled throughout. I feel like we get a bunch at the beginning and then it goes off the rails at the end, which we'll get into. But for some of the kills, I feel like they were pretty close to realizing its full potential, and with a couple of them really showcase some pretty cool practical effects that were also kind of just cheesy and kind of fun. Like the one that stood out to me was when the motel owner is gifted that slug in a box from one of our characters here, and he's driving, going to give the toy slug to his son or somebody, and the motorized slug kind of crawls up him, goes in his mouth, and then eventually sucks his eyeballs out and goes poking out of his eye socket, which I thought was a great practical effect. It doesn't get overly gory, but I like that they kept it all practical, and it's just kind of neat to kind of look at. And then it causes the motel owner to get in this horrific car accident where his car goes off the road and then explodes in this over-the-top Michael Bay version of a car explosion. So I thought with brief moments there, they really recognized how just over-the-top and stupid this is, that they really went for it. So that scene got a pretty big laugh out of me, and I really enjoyed that one. And I also thought the movie did a pretty decent job at least setting up a bunch of different characters that seem kind of off, all these different red herrings. Like, for example, you have the toy maker guy that was in the motel room messing with all those toys and being obsessed with the boy named Derek in the movie, but you don't know exactly what his plan is for the majority of the movie. You got the same thing with the toy store owner named Joe and then his son Pino. Something seems off about both of them individually, yet their dynamic seems very off and concerning as well. And at one point, his son Pino breaks into the boy Derek's and his mom Sarah's home, and you don't know exactly what his plan is or what exactly he's doing or what his infatuation really is. So even though they don't really hide who could be a part of this main mystery and main story, they introduce enough red herrings where it's kind of fun trying to see which one is it going to be, even though it's maybe a little bit obvious, which we'll get into too, but I still like the kind of fun, mysterious edge that they went with this plotline here. And one of those red herrings, I feel like, to me, led to a pretty interesting revelation and kind of recontextualizes some of the things that this character was doing with the character of Noah that we get the twist with. We get the assumption at the beginning, because of how sketchy Noah is acting, that he is this toy killer guy because of the way he's creeping on Derek. That creepy scene of him being the mall Santa and not letting Derek off of his lap. You're like, what is going on with this character? He's acting so sketchy. But then we get the twist that we actually find out that Noah and Sarah used to be together before Sarah got with her husband that we saw in the opening scene. And when they were together, Derek is actually Noah's son, but Sarah never told Derek or anybody. She wanted to settle down and just chose someone other than Noah to settle down with. So it's a very interesting twist where, like I said, maybe they made it a little obvious of him being a red herring with just how overly creepy he is, but it makes sense when he kind of explains it, like he was getting all those toys to investigate the toy owner and the toy shop because he felt like something was sketchy. Makes sense now why he wouldn't want to have his son leave him when he was portraying Santa at the mall. Just when you don't know that information, it comes off as very creepy. When you know the information, it's still kind of creepy, but it makes a little bit more sense. So I like that added twist in there. And then that reveal also maybe keeps him as a red herring, which I thought was interesting because I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But then that is also giving you perfect motivation to kill his father in the beginning. So there's still some added information there where you're like, okay, I don't know if I can fully trust you, but I guess I understand what you're saying. So I thought they did a good job with the mysterious side, since this goes more mystery, campy horror, that they focus on the mystery, give you a bunch of sketchy characters, and you're trying to figure out what exactly is going on here. So I enjoy that they added that and really focused on that, because it gives you a story, a mystery to really get behind, and makes this entirely watchable and pretty interesting to get to the third act to really see what's going on. But yeah, let's jump into the mixed side for this movie. And unfortunately, I gotta put the opening scene here, and I feel like the opening scene was a bit of a missed opportunity to not go more graphic, crazy, or really unsettling, or at the same time, I feel like it was a missed opportunity to not go really over the top, campy, and silly to really set the tone and give us a warning of what's going to be happening in the third act. I feel like it just kind of plays it kind of flat where it takes itself very serious, but what's happening is not that serious. But since they're taking it very serious, it doesn't feel as over the top as maybe this movie should have been going for. Like, I think it's pretty creepy having somebody in the middle of the night drop off a present for the young boy Derek, and Derek is the only one that hears the doorbell and goes there to answer the door, gets the present, starts opening it, and then his dad comes down there and finds him and opens the gift instead after he shoos him up to bed, and then this toy like attaches to his face like a face hugger from Alien and ends up killing him. I think the way this didn't really land with me though is that the toy didn't kill him, it just attached to his face, and then his dad's like flailing all around the living room and then just falls over and trips on a wood place fire stick poker thing, and then that kills him. So I wish we were getting more of the stuff that comes into play in the third act introduced itself in this opening scene, because I think it could have been a good showcase of just showing all these crazy toys and gadgets just dismantle the father right in front of him. I think that would have made every toy in the rest of the movie a little bit more creepy and unsettling. Like, is this an evil toy? Is this not an evil toy? Instead, it's just a toy attaches to the face and causes him to fall over. So I felt like it was a bit of a missed opportunity with just how serious it takes it, and I think they could have built up the villain more if the toy was this crazy gadget or supernatural being that killed him. I really did think it was going to be some sort of bomb or some magical sphere like in Phantasm, but it just kind of plays out as causing a random accident, so to speak. So I wish it kind of went over the top in this fun, campy way, because I think it would have set the tone better than taking it so serious and kind of a goofy concept, if that makes sense. But I still like where it sets up our characters. It makes the family, Sarah and Derek, very likable. You have a lot of sympathy for them. So I think it does its job. I just think it missed its opportunity to really set the tone for what was to come. And again, in my mix, like with all of my reviews for this franchise, it seems like I really just don't understand the fourth wall break, where this one isn't as egregious, but we get Derek watching TV in one scene and he is watching part 3, and we kind of overhear it and see a glimpse of it on the TV. So I don't know why they don't reference the better movies in this franchise. This is the second time now that someone's watching part 3 on the TV. I just don't get it, and wish it was almost kind of like a running gag throughout the movie. Just all these movies pretty much besides the first one do that kind of running gag, but only once. It always just kind of reminds me that I'm watching a movie and the movie I'm watching is breaking the fourth wall, even though it never does it again. So I'm just seeing it as a style point this time, but I wish the movies would do something a little bit different with that. But yeah, let's jump into my negatives, or the things that I just didn't really like about this movie. I feel like this movie really has almost kind of an identity crisis, where it doesn't know if it wants to take itself super serious or go full-blown camp and cheesy and just have a lot of fun with it. The movie plays itself pretty serious up until the third act, but even in the third act, it felt like they were still taking itself serious with all this goofy, campy, cheesy shit going around. So it just felt like a mix of the wrong tones and poor execution, if that makes sense. And I think the majority of the movie, they should have had more kills played into that fun, over-the-top toy maker aspect, because besides the opening kill, which is fine, we get a couple more that just kind of come off as cheap and lame. Like, there's this rollerblade accident, almost kill, but not even a kill, where Derek's supposed to get these rollerblades, but then Kim's son gets the rollerblades and is on them, and then of course they have rockets attached to the bottom of the rollerblades, and he's like, oh, I can't stop, and like flies into a garage door, I think it is, and it's just not scary, it's not creepy, it just comes off as kind of of stupid. So I wish there was some better and more efficient kills sprinkled throughout. We really get the beginning, the toy slug one that I thought was pretty decent, and then the third act where it goes off the rails. So I felt like a large chunk in the middle was kind of missing that fun toy angle that I was looking for. I mean, there's a whole toy store section in the movie with Joe and his son Pino. I thought the whole toy store would kind of come to life, but that never really happened. So stuff like that I feel like was kind of a bit of a missed opportunity. But as we kind of get into the third act, I feel like that scene with Derek's babysitter and her boyfriend, that sex scene where they're in the poor kid's room, by the way, which I thought was just kind of like fucked up and really crossing the boundaries as a babysitter, by the way. But they go in there to have sex, and I feel like it kind of showcases the movie's kind of problem, at least to me, where they're on the bed making out and then all these toys come in like evil Toy Story characters, and the couple questions it at first but then keeps having sex, and then the toys kind of like crawl on top of them. They even have a scene where there's like planes flying around shooting at them. There's a tank shooting at the characters. Some toy cars have these blades on them. There's army figures, literally army crawling and shooting the couple with their mini guns. And I feel like it just went so over the top where the toy maker kind of feels like he has some sort of magical powers, and it pushes it too much, where when I was first watching it, I was like, oh, this is kind of funny and cheesy, but it just doesn't go far enough where it kind of loses any tension or suspense and comes off like you're watching the Toy Story characters in a rated R short film or fanfic or something. But I feel like the movie just kind of takes itself too seriously throughout the first 75% and then throws in this wacky curveball, which I thought the third act was going to be the entire movie. So when that wasn't the entire movie and it was taking itself pretty serious, and then we get to that, it just comes off as really cheesy and kind of lame, and just I feel like it pushed it a little too far, where it's just like I'm watching magical toys at this point, and unfortunately I just was not a big fan of it. I think I would have been a bigger fan if the whole movie just said fuck it and went for that. And like I said, I think for the majority part of the movie, they did a really good job at setting up some red herrings, even though they're kind of obvious. It was still making it kind of fun, almost like watching a Scream movie. But I feel like once you get the motivation that the store owner, Joe, and his son, Pino, used to live in Sarah's home, it's pretty obvious that Joe and Pino have something to do with it. But then I feel like we get the most unnecessary twist I feel like I've ever seen in a movie, at least in my opinion, where we get that revelation, the third act is coming, they're in Joe and Pino's store and apartment in the basement, and then we find out that Pino is actually a toy robot that Joe made after his firstborn son died. And Pino is revealed as the goofiest looking robot I have ever seen. All of a sudden just starts acting like a different character, where he's so over the top, he kind of comes off and sounds different than the character we spent the time getting to know throughout the rest of the movie. He's even changing his faces between Pino and his father, Joe, and again starts acting so over the top as he's word vomiting all of this exposition and reveals to us at this point, and it just went a little too far in my opinion. And I hated the scene of when he's revealing all of this to us and then talking to Sarah about how he was doing this because he wants Sarah to be his mom, and Joe never liked him that much like a son, and he just wants to feel love and he could be a good son, but he just keeps repeating it. And then he even at one point starts like pretty much sexually assaulting Sarah, or at least like thrusting into her, begging Sarah to be his mom. And I just felt like it was the weirdest scene I've ever seen, where the movie takes itself so serious where that comes off as weird. If it was more over the top and kind of campy, it would land a little bit better, and I just can't tell what they were going for, if that makes sense. Like, I appreciate it for being just so out there, wacky and wild, and not really giving a fuck about everyday rules and how the world works, I guess. But it's just executed so poorly. Pino at the end just kind of looks like a cheaply made, like, naked Ken doll if you take all the clothes off, which I've never done. even though I described exactly what it looks like. We're moving on here. It's the goofiest thing I feel like I've ever seen in my life, and just felt like an unnecessary twist where it just goes too far. It's way too unbelievable that this would be happening, that I can't take any of it serious. But then the tone of the movie wants me to take it serious, so I feel like I'm at a conflict with myself. Like, am I supposed to be laughing at this? Is this supposed to be creepy and unsettling? If they were going for this, I wish the whole movie was just this over the top. Like, there should have been toys attacking people every couple of minutes. The toy store should have been coming to life and like taking over the small town or something. There should have been more playing into it and not just saving it for the third act, in my opinion. But I would say overall, even though I felt like I was a little negative on it, it is a dumb, fun movie, even if it wasn't intended to be that way. And again, I appreciate how this franchise went into its anthology route and tried to ditch anything relating to Billy and Ricky. However, the toy maker, to me, I think fails to reach its potential by taking itself a bit too serious, having a few too many twists in there. Some of them are kind of obvious too, and I think it never really fully leaned into its premise until the last 10 minutes, but still took itself pretty serious. So it's kind of a mixed bag for me here, unfortunately. But I would say for my rating for this movie is, like I said, still had fun with it. I think this could be a perfect streaming movie, and if you don't take it too serious, I'd even recommend renting it for a couple of bucks. So you guys have my thoughts here on the fifth Silent Night, Deadly Night movie. Please let me know down below what you think of this movie. Is it one of your favorites? Is it one of your least favorites? Do you appreciate how this franchise went more into the anthology route? Are you excited more for the reboot coming out that seems to be going back to its first installment roots? Let me know all that information down below here, but that's about it. I appreciate anybody watching my videos, so thank you so much. And yeah, look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.